Well,
Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film. And this week is another episode of my Hayao Miyazaki series, and we're going to be talking about probably the most famous of characters from all of Studio Ghibli. It's Totoro, and joining me are my friends who share many movie nights together, and it is Dave, it's Mike, and it's Ryan. Thank you guys so much for coming on.
glad to be
Thanks for
here.
having us, Shane.
Absolutely. And Dave's probably the one that you might all recognize from some of my other shows when we used to talk baseball. Um, Not many people watch those videos, but we care a lot about baseball as we were complaining about the Phillies before we started recording. Before anybody else hopped on. But we're not here to talk about baseball. We're here to talk about movies. And for those who haven't tuned into the show before, we have three segments. And we start with coming attractions, and this is releasing on June 27th. So it's the last weekend of June before we get into that insane July where we have a Jurassic World movie, a Superman movie, and a Fantastic Four movie coming out all in the same month. But then we'll talk about our feature film, My Neighbor Totoro, and then we have some recommendations to send you home with, besides Totoro, because I'm pretty sure we all probably recommend Totoro. But let's get started with our coming attractions. There's a variety of limited releases this weekend, but mostly it's a dad movie and then a horror comedy for all the sassy ones out there because we have F1, the movie, which I got an email that said you must include the trademark symbol after F1 when typing out the title. And I'm like, that seems excessive. But no, F1, the movie, and then Megan 2.0. The little horror movie that blew up in January, and they're like, we're going to release the next one in June now. But I know most of us picked F1, but Mike, what gets you excited about Megan 2.0?
I've gotten so many TikTok ads about that movie, and every time I get one, it's slightly different, and they keep getting sassier and sassier. I will say it's weird that it feels like Megan's looking me directly in the face while she sasses the rest of the cast of the movie, but I'm interested to find out how it got to that point. So if nothing else, it made me want to go watch the first one.
There you go. And what's so funny is that you brought up TikTok because they actually re-edited the original film to make it PG-13 because it got so popular on TikTok and amongst Zoomers and Gen Alpha to get them into theaters to go see it. So, the internet won and her sassy dance while mutilating people caught everybody's attention. And they're really leaning into the comedy in this new trailer for this
Did
movie.
do they know nothing about how going to the movies works? You leave it R-rated, and that makes all the underage people go see it more.
Yes, but they have to sneak in at that point. Trust me, I've been to a PG-13 horror movie on a Friday night in a theater full of eighth graders. Would not recommend. I saw Happy Death Day on a Friday night. It was Friday the 13th. I remember because my brother got married that morning, and then I went to go see Happy Death Day
Why would
that
he do
night.
that on that day?
We won't get into that. But Megan 2.0, I'm kind of excited for it. I really enjoyed the first one, and they seem to be doing like the Terminator thing where the first movie was definitely more leaning into thriller, and then they realized, well, we could just make this an action like robot movie for the second one and make it bigger. And that's exactly what they're doing this time around because it is Megan facing another robot. But Dave
Is
and
she going to
Ryan
get
are
a
either,
motorcycle though?
I swear, if she shows up on a motorcycle with a leather jacket, I'm gonna laugh my ass off.
I bet it'll be a motor tricycle.
But Dave or Ryan, are either of you excited for Megan 2.0?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I
It
I
really
haven't
seems
seen
like what were you gonna say, Dave?
I haven't seen the first one yet either, but it does sound interesting, and I do think that's really cool how it really blew up because of TikTok. So definitely something I'm interested in at least learning more about. I haven't seen much of the trailers yet for the new one, but it does sounds like you said that how long ago was it the first one came out?
I feel like it came out 2.5 years ago because it was going to be exactly 2 years. They were going to
Okay.
release it this January. And then they're like, wait a minute, we can make more money if it's June. And then they punted it to June. So
Fair.
it's been about 2.5 years. And this is indeed the TikTok generation horror movie for people with its sassy female killer robot named Megan.
If they wanted to make the gamble of all time, they could have put it in July and then had Will Smith cameo for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually not a big horror movie person, but from what you've told me about it, it does sound like something I'd at least be interested in checking out.
We could always watch it um, before we get there. I'm pretty sure it's on Peacock because it's a Blumhouse movie, if I'm not mistaken. And it's one of those like they should have put this in the fourth week of July that's not taken up because it's like dinosaurs, Superman, the Fantastic Four, and Megan, or for those in the know, Mithrigan. Because for some reason the E in her name is a three. But I feel like they dropped the ball there. They should have waited until the third one to pull that. But
Yeah,
I'm not the one in charge of marketing this movie, but they didn't have enough confidence to be like, we know this will get a third movie. We're gonna drop the three in the name then. But the other big movie coming out this weekend is Apple produced, Brad Pitt starring, Joseph Kosinski directing F1 the movie. So obviously this is there for I'm sure all the like Formula One fans are probably very excited to see a new Formula One film. But I know at least what gets me excited about this one is I've been a fan of Joseph Kosinski because of like I really like his movie Oblivion that he made with Tom Cruise. Um, which is like just the greatest hits of sci-fi movie tropes that you could throw into a movie, but it looks really cool. And then Top Gun Maverick, where all the like fighter jet sequences were really intense and thrilling. Now it's just going to be in a race car. And it has this story like Brad Pitt's part of this new team and he's supposed to be mentoring this young person. So honestly, it just kind of feels like the plot of Top Gun Maverick, except with, you know, Formula One cars instead. So I could be about that for 2.5 hours. And so will all the dads out there looking for their movie to go see this summer. But I know Dave and Ryan mentioned this one. Dave, what has you excited for this one?
well, I really like, movies like you said, that's a perfect connection. It's Top Gun. I just like the high intensity, like
Mhm.
on the edge of your seat, watching these guys like, go flying across the screen and pull off all these crazy moves. And, you know, I had like the same feeling when I saw the Gran Turismo movie, where
Which had no right to be as good of a movie as that was about not it wasn't even an adaptation of the game. It was about like an actual person who won an actual Gran Turismo contest to become an
yeah,
actual race car driver.
it's like
Wild.
I never even got into like playing the games much, and I don't like watch a lot of like racing in real life, but nonetheless, like I just found the movie very interesting, and just it keeps your attention anytime they're going in the race cars, and there's
Mhm.
all these high stakes, and you feel like you don't know what's going to happen next. So I feel like even if it's a longer movie, like it just flies by because it really grips your attention the whole time.
Go off and go see this in IMAX and just be like, oh my God. How about you, Ryan?
I really was interested to see if they're what they're going to do with the mentorship, because there's always
Mhm.
an interesting theming behind like an older person bringing their knowledge and interests of different sports or events or abilities that they're able to do and relay that to like a younger person and make a connection, even if they're not related by blood, but by the interest. They're connected. They're trying to go beyond what was previously thought to be normal. And also, I think in like American culture, everything is NASCAR, not Formula One.
Yeah.
But having another movie that may be more action packed or more interesting than what people think that F1's all about. And also from a person that likes to understand how everything works. A lot of the stuff that goes into a Formula One cars are very precise and very specifically designed to have a specific function. And having even the tiniest bit of that influence into a movie might allow other people to get into other interests and find more passions that they can do with their own life or find a connection, just like in this movie, for doing anything in life.
You know, F1 definitely wanted to trademark this movie because they're like, this is the best ad we could possibly put out to get people to watch Formula One racing. So, hey, if this movie's that good, it makes me want to go watch Formula One racing. I'll give it a lot of credit. But Ryan, I do appreciate you bringing up the point of like the mentorship relationship. And it kind of just made me think of some current events that Dave will get this reference. So, Joe Flacco, who is an aging quarterback in the NFL, was recently asked if he's going to mentor Deion Sanders' son on the Cleveland Browns, and basically his response is always "F them kids," and just like it's not my job to mentor them. It's like if they pay attention and can learn a thing or two, then maybe they'll learn a thing or two. I'm like, see, that's the attitude that every one of these mentor movies starts with. Nobody goes in wanting to be the mentor, but we'll see because that's the kind of vibe like Brad Pitt still wants to be the head of his racing team, but he's hired to mentor this other racer. So it'll be interesting to see. And we'll have to see if F1 the movie rises up to the pantheon of racing movies like Cars and Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby. Obviously the two movies that people will think of when you think of racing movies. In
True.
actuality, we're gonna see if this is another Ford v Ferrari. That's a great racing movie, and for all the dads out there that want to go to the movies. So, but those are our coming attractions for June 27th as we wrap up the month of June. Definitely not as we're recording. I'm glad that we have the whole month of June ahead of us, but now, looking at some background for My Neighbor Totoro, I got some basic information, a little behind the scenes stuff, but this wound up making $41 million at the box office. It explores themes of animism, Shinto symbology, environmentalism, and rural life in Japan. Um, it made a lot of money through home video and merchandise, which I'm pretty sure Totoro is probably one of the most sold things in Japan. Probably, I would just assume. Um, then we have this won the Animage Grand Prix, the Manichi Film Award, and the Cinema Jumpo Award. So this was like a big deal in anime, winning a lot of awards. This was actually named top 100 best films of world cinema at number 41. So this has obviously made a really big impact on a lot of people. Basically, Totoro has become the mascot of Studio Ghibli at this point, and it is basically the equivalent for Japan of like Winnie the Pooh. So people love them, their Totoro. Miyazaki wanted to make a delightful and wonderful film set in Japan because his last, a lot of his films, surprisingly, a lot of his films take place in Europe, which is interesting. But he wanted to make something that was very Japanese here. Uh, Kazuo Oga, who's the art director on the film, was drawn to the project after seeing the like original design of Totoro and just being really inspired by the character. And he was also challenged a lot on the film and had conflicts with Miyazaki, who's very particular about how he makes his movies. But apparently, this really launched Oga's career after this. Miyazaki wanted to craft a period that felt both modern and nostalgic. Most of the film was very heavily storyboarded, except for the opening sequence, which apparently they made a whole bunch of different like versions and shots and stuff like that. and kind of looked at different combinations. They originally wanted to set this in 1955 Japan, but apparently most of the crew were not very well researched on the period, so they just had to make it like in the not so distant past. Um, so people were a little bit more comfortable with what they were trying to do. This has been dubbed twice. So we have the Streamline dub from 1993, and of course the Disney dub, since Disney has redubbed like all of Studio Ghibli after they made that deal with them. And what was interesting, because like the what we watched together yesterday, because we all watched this together yesterday, it seemed like some kind of strange hodgepodge of everything. Because I think Mike was the first one to point out that all of the subtitles, like the closed captioning, was all like the Japanese version of the dialogue. So it's like, I think one of the ones that, like, one of the first ones that stood out, because like they were talking about gremlins versus like squirrels or something like that. And just like, I guess squirrels would be more like, hey, American. And they're like talking about gremlins, stuff like that. Um, and then, but yeah, so that's basically the background I had for this. Obviously, this is one of the most popular Studio Ghibli films, but for those that don't know, this is about when two girls move to the country to be near their ailing mother. They have adventures with the wondrous forest spirits who live nearby, including Cat Bus. Cat Bus. Alone in the World, Little Cat Bus. There you go. You're all welcome. So let's go around the horn first and kind of give our general feelings on the film, and I guess our experience. Because, like, was this anybody's first time watching this?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
We've watched this. I'm pretty sure all of us have watched this plenty of times at this point. But Dave, what are your general thoughts on Totoro?
Well, first of all, like you said, you know, Totoro's pretty much become like a mascot for Studio Ghibli. So, of course, one of the things that stands out to me is the character designs. You know,
Yes.
of course, Totoro himself and Cat Bus, I think, stick out the most to people. And of course, you know, all the little other spirits they encounter through the movie are
Mhm.
very fun and charming. And I think, you know, as a whole, the movie just gives off like this really wholesome vibe, and you know, it's really I really like the whole plot line of you know them moving out to be closer to their mother and
Mhm.
becoming a part of this new community, and you know, like you said, it's kind of like rural Japan, and all the neighbors look out for each other, and you know, like it sticks out to me at that one part where you know they get the telegram about their mother and they're worried you know something's wrong with her, and one of the
Mhm.
daughters disappears, and you know like the whole neighborhood just comes together to like try to help and find her, and you know they do their best to take care of the girls when their dad's away. So you know I just really like that whole vibe that the movie gives off.
Absolutely. How about you, Mike? What are your general thoughts?
Well, this is, I think, my first time watching the movie in my 30s, so there was a lot of different stuff I picked up on that I never thought about. One of them was I really appreciated the fact that it never felt like the adults outright disbelieved the children. Because in a lot of movies, like, my kids saw they saw
Silly
said
kids.
something, they're just being kids. But this dad, when they went and found his daughter in the trees, the first thing he did was follow them in and go, okay, you know what? I see that the thing you're talking about is not here, but I bet I know where it actually is. Let's go. And then they
Mhm.
went and found it for real, and he just immediately went along with it for the whole movie, and I really appreciated that. I'm not going to go into why I appreciated that. That's not the kind of video this is, but it was definitely interesting. And I know, as far as like for my own nonsense for watching movies, you guys know I kept looking up the different voice actors trying to figure out
Yeah.
which dub it was.
Which that was
If
also
it
one of the confusing things, because like
the
like
credits said it was the credits for the Disney version, the subtitles for the Japanese version, but I'm pretty sure that it was the streamlined dub. But the interesting thing about if it was the streamlined dub was finding out how many of the voice actors were related
mhm.
through like marriage. How the mom's voice actor was the mother of the father's voice actor who was married to one of the daughter's voice actors.
And to be clear, these were all the voice actors. Because like that's such a strange like connection, which it's interesting because I guess the mom does sound like she's like a bit older, like her
Yeah.
voice performer versus like the dad voice performer, which I guess that makes sense seeing as she's like his mother in real life. Strange connections, which I think one of the interesting things is in the Disney dub, it's actual sisters who are voicing the two sisters because it's the Fanning
Mhm.
sisters with Dakota and Elle. Um, who actually I haven't seen Dakota Fanning in a whole lot of things lately, but Elle
It's
Fanning so hot right now.
it feels
So
weird to acknowledge the fact that Dakota Fanning is no longer the child that Denzel Washington has to rescue. She's been a grown woman for some time, and I don't actually want to look into it because it's just going to make me shrivel.
because like I'm pretty sure Man on Fire came out like 21 years ago or something like that. Just like, oh, what are you doing this to me? But Ryan, what are your general thoughts on the film?
I really enjoyed it. I liked the symbolism that
Mhm.
different little aspects of the movie brought in. I liked the connection to the Shinto beliefs and the connection to nature that it brought. It allowed it to be a like a child's film that showed some realism, some symbolism that made connections, and also piqued some interest of uh, maybe allowing people to get a soft introduction to different themes and beliefs from different locations around the world.
Absolutely, because like this is like an aggressively Japanese movie. Like
Yeah,
it's one of those kinds of things where like you're watching a different culture playing out on screen, and I appreciate that about the film a lot. One quick side thing for me personally, so anybody who knows my preferences of Pokemon know that I am a Snorlax all around. And to the point where my wife has made me a crochet Snorlax. She's bought me multiple Munchlax, and there's no way in hell they did not beat Snorlax and Munchlax off of Totoro and like mini Totoro in this movie because the point, like the just general shape, the point ears and everything. And how do we meet Totoro for the first time?
Sleeping,
He's big, fluffy ball sleeping inside his tree. Um,
as opposed to in the middle of the road.
yes. No pokey flute necessary. For this one. To get him to wake up. But I love the character designs. And one of the things that stands out to me most, and I feel like what makes this definitely like a Japanese film instead of an American kids animated movie. So, think about Disney. What's usually the big thing with parents in Disney movies?
absent.
Either they're absent or they're dead. So, like, Disney goes straight for like parent dead. And obviously that's a hard thing for a child to process is that they're never going to see their parent again. What I appreciate about Totoro is that it challenges the children with uncertainty. It's the uncertainty of like, will their mother get better? And they don't know what's going to happen with their mom. And in the immortal words of Tom Petty, the waiting is the hardest part. Um, I appreciate that this film challenges its audience to process uncertainty in life because death is certain. It's like you're never going, like, that's not going to change. And you adapt to it. This is a situation where you have two young girls that, like, their mom's away because she's sick. And there's ups and downs. And I appreciate that this film tackles something like that. And it does it very honestly and earnestly. Like, this doesn't, like, it doesn't talk down to the audience or the kids in the movie. It's very honest about it. Also, this is very aggressively not kid paced. Despite the fact that this movie's only an hour and 26 minutes, like kid pacing where it's just like you can't let up because the kids will not stay focused. And that's like the perspective that America has on like kids movies is that you have to like, here's a conflict, let's resolve it in 3 minutes because we need to keep the kids' attention. I appreciate that this film takes its time and like lets it breathe. And I think that's what really allows it to just highlight and cherish the beauty of this place, the community. Dave, you brought up like the sense of community. As a suburbs kid, um, I did know my neighbors growing up when I was a kid. As a suburbs adult, I don't talk to any of my neighbors. It's one of those kinds of things where it's like it's a nice little experience seeing the community that's on in play here and them coming together to support the kid this family because the mother being sick and then the daughter running like disappearing are really the only conflicts in the movie. Like there's no big villain, there's no this or that. It's just you really appreciate just being engrossed in this world with some banger music too. All the way from the opening credits with that beautiful hand-drawn animation, the Totoro, Totoro, which is one of the most obnoxiously infectious songs I think I've ever heard in my whole entire life. But I guess what are some I don't think we're gonna have a whole lot. Does anybody have any like particular like negatives that they have about the film?
Mhm.
Can't really
I
say anything that I disliked a whole lot. It's like you said, I think it runs at a good pace. I like that it, handles difficult topics that, children in real life can relate to. So I feel like it's
Mhm.
very grounded in reality, which I think really helps the movie as a whole. Even though obviously, a big part of the movie too is spirits that they
Yes.
see and the adults don't see. But as Mike pointed out before, I like that, the adults in the movie too aren't like talking down to them. And as
Mhm.
he said, like something that stood out to me, I didn't pick up on the first time was the father pretty much like asking Totoro, he's like, "Thank you for looking after my daughters. Please continue to do so." And he does.
Mhm. To me, for me personally, like I don't have like I can't like think of like, oh, this is something glaring that sticks out to this movie that I don't like about it. And this
Yeah.
is like such a wonderful, charming fantasy film that has a great heart. It just fully envelops you. Um, Ryan, were you gonna say something?
Nope, I didn't have anything.
I
Um,
have a half thing.
okay. Go ahead, Mike.
The neighbor boy. I did spend most of the movie annoyed anytime he showed his face because all he would do would just be weird about May's existence. But at the same time, I do recognize that his buildup of continually trying really hard to interact with them and sort of failing, had they not had that, he wouldn't have been able to be there in the 0 hour to help when they got the telegram from the
Mhm.
hospital and when they were trying to find the little sister, because that he got over his thing by being like, I'm helping, but it felt like it was doing the normal movie thing of, oh, look, the two little kids are going to end up together like wolf children, but
Mhm.
then didn't do that. So it's like, on the one hand, I'm glad they didn't force the, as far as we know, first graders into a relationship. It just felt pointless that it was there at all until the end.
I
I think
guess. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
I think it's related to like the superstition in Japan of spirits, because one of the I think they're called yokai are is a
Mhm.
beautiful woman luring you away, and I think part of that was the boy within first sight of her was unable to speak to her, either because he was scared she was a ghost, or she looked so pretty that he was without words.
There's
So
also
more.
the fact that he did say that it was known that they were moving into a haunted house because the whole town knew there were spirits in that house.
Yeah,
Haunted
And
house movie.
at first it was like, oh, it's just superstition. They're like, and the dad's like, no, yeah, the house definitely is haunted. It's why I was able to get it so cheap. It's fine.
classic haunted house movie, Dad. Um, just like let me take a look at the haunted house section of the listings for homes. I'm gonna pull up Zillow and put my filter on haunted. Let's see what kind of deals we can get.
I've been hearing recently there's a bunch of just abandoned Japanese houses that people are no longer living in, and they're super cheap. And I feel like that's a very interesting circumstance that's also related to this movie.
Mhm.
I don't know
Well,
if rent is quite so expensive that I want to shack up with the techie woman though.
For I think it was like $300, you can have a house.
A whole house?
Yes, have a whole house. It may still have appliances in it.
I mean, damn, all right, fine. If the techie woman stays on her side.
it's just like we just don't go in this section of the house, but how can I argue with like $300 rent? Like,
Not rent, just you bought the house for $300.
damn, that must be so haunted.
Yeah,
Just like,
That did the cheap house does make me think of the one other thing at the beginning of the movie, a problem I wouldn't have had until now I'm in my 30s. I was getting so mad at those little girls trying to knock down the front porch for fun. I was like, will you stop that? You don't know how much it costs to get that fixed. Oh my God.
and you're thinking like their dad's probably in his 30s, and we're like, well, we're the dad in the movie now, and it's like,
Right?
kids,
I'm just
you don't
watching
have
them
to.
break the house and I'm like, that's gonna cost so much.
Well, to be fair, Mike, at least it was still 1970s or
Something.
80s, and it probably wasn't that expensive. If this movie was 2025, it's just like you're going to a job now. You're paying this back. Like, I think that's an interesting point too, Mike, of like as we get older, we're seeing this from a different perspective. But I think the film still works so well because like this film is fantastical. And some of my favorite moments, and like, the umbrella rain dance that they were doing to like bring that massive tree out of nowhere. Um, it's fun, it's wondrous, it's so creative. And the big moment, and any of those big moments like the music, Joe Hishashi just rolling in and just going like ham on the like composing and just bringing this absolutely gorgeous music every time something fantastical happens. It felt it felt epic. Like this film's not like epic in that kind of sense of scale, but like you just feel the wonder of those moments because the music's incredible, the animation's incredible. And I know we brought up briefly like the character designs, like the cat bus. Like that cat bus is kind of scary to me. Just like headlight eyes. I'm
10
like,
legs.
it's just like, um, my cat staring across at me in the dark scary enough. I don't need one that has like headlights. Especially
Oliver.
Murphy, our little black cat, who's just like you don't even know is there at night, and then eyes open, you're just like, how long have you been sitting there?
Yes.
And then he just screams because that's all he does is screams. Um, but I guess were there any other specific things about the film that stood out to everybody that they wanted to bring up?
Well, when you mentioned the music, it made me have a thought. When I
Mhm,
was a kid, the way I saw a lot of these movies, excluding Totoro, was Toonami did a daytime thing where every Saturday they would show another Ghibli movie.
mhm,
And so Ghibli movies are intrinsically linked to summer for me. And a
okay.
large part of that, it's not just the vibe of the movies, it's the music that adds to the vibes of the movies. So
Mhm.
the music that would play whenever they were, like you said, doing fantastical things in Totoro, or the madness that happens in Spirited Away. The music practically makes me feel a summer breeze every time I hear it.
And that's a special kind of connection that we can have with music and movies and stuff like that. Like Totoro just gives off this like I'm trying to remember. They explicitly say what time of year it was. It just gives off
It
summer
it it
vibes. Like
changes. Like there's
Yeah,
a passage of time throughout the movie. I think it started in spring and towards the middle they were in the summertime. I think they were in summer break when they wrote Cat Bus to go see their mom at the hospital.
yeah. And it's just one of those things where this just gives off like the vibe of like, when we were kids, you go venture off in the nice weather when nobody was in school and stuff like that. And now it's just like, if I try to do that as an adult, I'm gonna hurt my knee
Well,
or
like
this or that.
I did not grow up in the kind of neighborhood where I can relate to that, but
Yeah. It just reminded me of Dave and I going to Tyler State Park a couple weeks ago, and we found the wrong incline, and then we're both like wheezing, going up because we're
when you said
30
we
something
found
now.
I thought you were going to say something else at the end of but I guess that's only a thing that happens when I go on walks. Like I was walking to GameStop and then I found the deer corpse in front of the Home Depot.
I don't think we found any corpses, but we did
You
piles of.
felt like corpses.
Yes, I 100% felt like a corpse by the time I got to the top of that incline. I'm like, Dave, remember me? But anything else?
I did like specifically too the relationship between the two sisters. Like I
Mhm,
feel like, you know, much of the movie, at least towards the beginning, was just them, like getting along perfectly and, having
mhm,
a great time. But then, towards the back half of the movie, when they explore more about the uncertainty with their mother, you see them, finally have conflict between
yeah.
themselves. And, I felt like that did justice to like, you know, what it would be like in real life, like two young girls dealing with a difficult situation and they don't know how to handle it. They end up clashing with each other, but at the end of the day, like they show how much they care for each other. They're able
Mhm,
to reconcile, and even at the end of the movie, even though they don't interact with their mother directly, the younger daughter is able to bring her the little piece of corn that she picked to try to heal
mhm.
her. That was still like a nice little feel good way to reconcile things at the end of the film.
It had a very honest and endearing sisterly relationship for sure. And you have them like going through the house, finding like the little spirits
and
and
killing
stuff like
them.
that, and little gremlins. Um, and you know, this film's a lot of play and watching these kids play, and it's very cute and it's endearing. And as a child watching this film, I'm sure it's very relatable. As an adult, it's one of those kinds of things where it's like, I don't know, it made me want to be like, I want to play with my kids someday and watch them, you know, going out and using their imagination. I don't think they're going to find these kinds of spirits in New Jersey. Um, we have other kinds of things here, like
Don't
Jersey
find those.
Devil. Yeah,
Don't
we
find
don't want to
those.
find those. We
Dave,
are not.
when you said the thing about them being friendly and close to each other, I don't know if anybody else was actually reading the subtitles, but if those were the actual Japanese subtitles for what they were saying in the Japanese dub, the older sister is mean. She is so mean. The whole time she was running around looking for the little sister, she was constantly complaining about how stupid she is.
Well,
But
and I think
that
that's the point of like what Dave was bringing up. That like I think as the film goes on, like there's going to be conflict, and I think their situation put them in a particular situation where there's a lot of emotion there, and it's challenging. Ryan, I think you were gonna.
it's part of having a sibling that's very close to your age. Having a younger sister myself, I call a lot of her decisions stupid, but in the end, we come back together and we figure it out. And sometimes at the moment of high emotions, things are said. So, yeah, you can be mean at times, but sometimes that's you just carrying so much that you say anything to try and let off steam.
Yeah, I have an older brother, and I would describe many of his decisions as stupid. Um, but I'm the younger one in that situation. But it's one of those kinds of things because I think anybody who has siblings will have an interesting perspective on this movie for sure. Um, because I know my brother got frustrated with me when we were kids. He took it to a whole new level of bullying, and stuff like that. But they didn't quite go so far in this movie. But I think that's one of the things about this too is just how well they capture uh sibling relationships in this and how honest it is. But I guess any other final thoughts about Totoro before we move on and give people some recommendations to head home with? It's a beautiful little film and you should all go check it out. If you could go see this or any of the Studio Ghibli films on a big screen during Ghibli Fest because they do that literally every year in movie theaters, you should definitely do it.
Oh,
Um, And if I'm not mistaken, the Totoro one is July this year. So it is out in theaters after this episode comes out a couple weeks. So go check it out on a big screen. I've actually seen this one in a theater, which was a lot of fun. But actually, wait a minute. I've seen this movie twice in a theater.
I know I
Actually,
saw an ad for a Ghibli movie when we were there yesterday, but I don't remember which one it was. Wishful
um,
thinking wants to say Spirited Away, but oh,
I was looking at because they had the cutout of the 8 films they're showing this year. I think Kiki already passed, and then one's probably by the time this episode drops, the June one would already have passed. But I'm trying to remember. All I remember is Boy and the Heron's the one that comes out around my birthday in November, and I'm like, okay.
Mahito, Mahito.
But these are special films, and if you can see them on a big screen, I think that's a special kind of experience. Or you just go on Max and binge watch all of them because uh soon to be
It
HBO Max again has almost all of them streaming there for sure.
This month is The Secret World of Arrietty, and by the time this video comes out, it will have just passed by 3 days.
Yep, there you go. So you can enjoy the other 6 of them that are coming out the rest of this year, if I'm not mistaken. So
Oh, the one after that is oh no. But the one after that is Totoro, but then it's Grave of the Fireflies.
if you want to get real depressed and find a movie theater, go see Grave of the Fireflies. So enjoy. Um, different kind of moods that are there. But this is a wonderful film. And as I'm going through ranking my Miyazaki films as I'm doing this series, this is definitely number one at the moment. Um, which would include through Kiki because I did watch that already. As I'm recording both of these episodes in the same day. So if you're wondering, does Shane wear the same shirt all the time? Kind of, but no, it's the same recording. It's also fun looking at the evolution of my hair and my facial hair through these videos because it does change pretty regularly. Let's go with some recommendations to wrap this show up for everybody. Dave, Dave has a Switch 2 and he wants to tell you about the launch game that came out with it.
Well, keeping with the theme of the racing movie we talked about earlier, an easy one to recommend would be the new Mario Kart World on the Switch 2. And I'm sure many people have experienced a Mario Kart game at some point in their lives. And as
Yes,
usual,
for
this
sure.
one's a lot of fun. It adds there's a lot of characters, different costumes you can unlock. There's an option to like drive around in like an open world setting because all of the tracks are like interconnected in a cool way. And whether it's local multiplayer you like, playing online, or just relaxing and playing against the computer, there's a lot to do there. You got your usual Grand Prix mode. There's a new like knockout mode where like through different segments of the racing, it's like the top 20 move to the next segment, then the top 16. And that's the other thing. This version now has up to 24 racers in one race, which is
Dang.
crazy. So when
We're
you're in like
slowly getting up to like actual NASCAR
yeah.
numbers of how many racers we could get.
So if you're in the middle of the pack, there's all kinds of craziness going on, and the tracks have like a lot going on now too, because you can like grind on rails and wall ride, and like there's all these new crazy things you can try to do and practice, and the even against the computer on the higher difficulties, like they're no slouch. Like they use those techniques, so it definitely challenges you to try to learn some new things.
Technique.
So I have one comment and two questions as a follow. One comment is I've been known to Luigi stare in real life at people on the highway. Because people make me feel that way on 295 on a daily basis going to and from work. It's just like somebody's a jerk and almost clips me passing me. They're getting a Luigi stare as they go by. And that's an intense stare. Also one of my favorite memes on the internet. Um, Two questions though. So first off, would Mario Kart be part of the four horsemen of ending the friendship apocalypse when it comes to video games? Because I feel like the king is Mario Party, but I
Hmm.
feel like Mario Kart has to be on there.
Yeah, it's definitely part of that group. You know,
I
Mario
feel like
Party
Smash
had,
Bros would probably also be one of the three.
yep,
I can only think of three. We have to figure out a fourth one. I don't know, Call of Duty maybe. I don't know.
that
But
could do it.
it only happens to be tons of Mario because it's like, let's go play with our friends and have a fun time. And then it's not fun anymore. And my second question is let's do a quick run through real quick. Who's everybody's favorite character to race as?
Ooh, it's changed a bit for me over the years. Like I've been playing since it first came out on the Super Nintendo. Back then,
Okay.
I used to play as the Koopa, Koopa Troopa, and then I
Nice.
switched to playing Toad for a while. And nowadays, in like whether Mario Kart, Mario Party, whatever, I tend to go with Yoshi.
There you go. Mike, do you have one?
I didn't grow up with Mario Kart because I spent the middle like 15 years of my life with no player two.
Fair. Ryan, do you have a particular play racer that you always play as?
So when I first started playing, I think I was mostly picking Luigi, but as I got older, I tried to play more of the like side characters, which make less appearances, because I felt like uh,
They deserve love too.
they deserve love too, but also uh, having them in your uh, view constantly, you get to learn a little bit more about them. Like as you said earlier, the Luigi had a stare that he's infamous for, but you don't see all these other characters doing these things that often. But if you're playing like Mario Party or Mario Kart, they might do this interaction, and then you're like, well, why did he do that? Well, like a Shy Guy, you don't always see them in games, but you find out they're kind of like tribal or uh like so mysterious because they have this mask on.
Yeah, I 100% of the time will be playing as Bowser. And if you don't get out of my way, I will run you
Big man
over.
Bowser.
I consistently play as heavies in
Mm-hmm.
anything that so Bowser, I might not be the quickest, but if you don't get out of the way, I might smash you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm a big Ganondorf fan for Smash. Which is why I hate Brawl because they made him trash. Um, after he was OP in Melee, so OP, so strong. But uh, Mike, what did you want to recommend to everybody?
Um, I was leaning toward Lies of P because they just shadow dropped the DLC the other day as of recording this, because as of recording this, Summer Game Fest has happened. Oh shit. The Xbox presentation is today. But when they added the DLC, they also added two easier difficulties, and it's a Souls-like game, which I am like notoriously terrible at, but they all have interesting stories. This one particularly is like a gritty goth magic retelling of Pinocchio, and it plays closer to Bloodborne than it does to Dark Souls. But I'm really interested in the story and the world. I think Jiminy Cricket is a AI and a lantern that you pick up off a bar stool and a train.
Interesting.
And with them having the easier difficulties, because I played the demo and I got swarmed like, okay, I got all the guys, there's no guys left. And I threw a Molotov at someone, and six dudes and a dog came from different directions and just mauled me. So that's the kind of game you can expect. But with the two easier difficulties and the new DLC that just came out and it goes on sale for half off fairly often, I think it's worth it the very least looking into the demo.
I infamously know Dark Souls as like this is the game that might make you quit playing video games because it'll frustrate you this much.
Yeah, I don't know how
Um,
I beat Elden Ring, but I've only been through like two bosses of the first Dark Souls. I
so
got
but
lost.
this seems like a really interesting twist on Pinocchio for sure. Um, I I really need to venture out and actually play my other games that isn't just MLB The Show on my Switch because honestly, that's what I keep going back to and playing. I like baseball, so there you go. But and then Ryan, what did you want to recommend?
Okay, so I my choice is a little related to the theming of Totoro, which is Monster Hunter Wilds. I think it has very good interaction with ecology and nature, and trying to understand why different creatures do different things. You're interacting with different cultures. You're building a community, and the player-based community is really like accepting and helpful. There's a whole mechanic of like shooting up a flare to ask for help, and other more experienced hunters can jump in and help you. There's different mechanics that allow other hunters to like heal you or give you buffs, and there's just a variety of different ways to go about hunting these monsters. But sometimes these monsters have good reasons. Sometimes they just are animalistic and are trying to protect their territory.
Awesome. I've heard really good things about the Monster Hunter games, and are they out on the Switch? Like any of them that you could play on the
So,
Switch?
Monster Hunter Rise is on the Switch,
Okay.
which was the previous iteration of Monster Hunter. Before that was Monster Hunter Worlds. So Rise was the first one to come out on the Switch.
Well, Generations Ultimate is on the Switch
That
too.
was also on Switch. Thank you for the correction.
I will, like I said, I need to play other games besides just my baseball one, but I've always been a Nintendo kid, and I've never like I've very seldomly had like a PlayStation or an Xbox. So like there's a lot of these franchises that just don't release on Nintendo consoles because Nintendo's leaning more towards like family friendly entertainment. Except you can still ruin friendships with their family friendly entertainment. But like it'll be interesting to check out some of those games, especially since I've only seen the movie and I know that was not a good adaptation. There we go. My video game public service announcement is why does the Switch not have any football games? Get on that.
Well,
At a
that would
moment
be
where I'm like,
EA being wusses about Nintendo stuff.
who's the real villain of the video game world? Is it EA? Maybe.
It's Sony, but um
That could
There we
turn
go.
into a whole other video.
We'll have a different future Wasteland discussions on what really grinds our video game gears. Um, so so we got a bunch of video game recommendations. I have a few movie ones. So starting off with a new movie that I watched was Predator: Killer of Killers. This is such a great idea of just having an anthology film of like, what if predators fought a Viking? What if predators fought a samurai or a ninja or a pilot in World War II? It's endless. What if they fought a pirate? What if they fought a medieval knight? Bring it on. I want it. Keep making them. And the animation's really cool. The action is brutal, like limbs flying, like heads chopping off, and craziness. And it all leads up to a pretty interesting expansion of like world building for Predator, which also secondary coming attraction recommendation. I'm so excited for Predator Badlands that's coming out later this year, where you actually get to follow a predator as the protagonist who's a runt and has to deal with him being like attacked by other monsters on other planets and also other predators. So I'm down for that. One film off my watch list, which I'll be talking about in one of my podcasts, is Friends with Kids. I thought this was a pretty solid comedy drama. It's from writer, director, and star Jennifer Westfeldt, who I only recognized her from Kissing Jessica Stein, which was a film I like watched a long time ago. But basically, she plays Julie, and her best friend, played by Adam Scott, is Jason. And they're in the same friend group. Maya Rudolph and Chris O'Dowd are a couple. Kristen Wiig and John Hamm are a couple. They have kids. And, it seems to be wearing on their marriages. And Julie and Jason are like, but what if we don't get in a relationship, but we have a kid together? So like we don't have to worry about the like keeping a marriage together, but we could just be co-parents. So that's basically the crux of the movie. Um Surprise to no one, this ends exactly how you probably think it's going to end for a movie that came out in like 2011, which is I appreciate the film dabbling in the idea that like yes, you can have different kinds of relationships and parenting and stuff like that for only the film to be like just kidding, they need to be in a relationship. But besides that point, I do think it's funny. I do like the cast a lot. There's a lot of familiar faces along the way. This was even at like the height of Megan Fox being in a bunch of stuff because she becomes Adam Scott's girlfriend at one point. But lastly, one of my films that I rewatched was The Illusionist, which is like one of those weird situations where Hollywood's like, we're going to release basically the same concept twice at the same time, whether it was like Ants and Bugs Life or Deep Impact and Armageddon. This was the other magician movie that came out the same time as The Prestige. I think it looks really cool. It has this very vintage feel to it. It has twists and turns. It's mysterious. Edward Norton and Paul Giamatti are fantastic in it. And also, it definitely dates the movie because Jessica Biel was like the main romantic lead in this movie. I'm like, when was the last time you saw Jessica Biel at anything? But those are some recommendations. That's our discussion on Totoro. And that's a wrap on another episode of Welcome to the Wasteland. But Dave, Mike, and Ryan, thank you all so much for coming on and talking movies with me and video
Yeah, it's
Thank
games.
fun.
you.
Thanks, Shane.
So,
Always
as it
fun.
turned out. So, but thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.
Go see Ballerina.
Yes, I will be recommending Ballerina in my next episode that I'm recording later today because I needed to save some stuff to talk about later. But yes, I will double recommend Ballerina because it was badass. Grenades. That's all I'm gonna say. Grenades. So many grenades. But goodbye.